Joining us tonight, we have a special guest, former WCW superstar, the Equalizer, Dave Sullivan. Dave, thanks so much for joining us.
You betcha. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
I'm very, very excited to have you on here. Talk to me about how'd you break into wrestling?
Yeah, I met Harley, and he talked to me about getting into it. And so I started a little bit in the summer that year, going down there and being trained by him and Bob Geigel. And I still coached, and I did it for about 6 weeks down there that summer. Then I went back and coached that fall, and I'd go when I had a chance over there and still train. And then finally after that, I did a couple house shows with those guys. And then finally, Len Denton, the grappler, give Harley a call because he used to book for Harley, and asked if we had any big guys talent-wise, and he suggested me. So, lo and behold, I'm heading up to 1989. I'm heading up there to Portland, Oregon, being part of the MPNW, Pacific Northwest Wrestling.
Did you know who Harley was? Were you a fan?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I watched because I grew up we were in Denver, which is part of the AWA back in that day. And then we ended up moving to Omaha. My dad took the defensive coordinator job at University of Nebraska in Omaha there. So that brought us here. And this was part of the AWA because at that time, AWA was probably the largest organization. And because they were all over the Midwest, they went from Canada all the way down to, they even worked some of the stuff in Harley's territory, down in Kansas City, because Harley was part of the AWA. Him and, gosh dang, what was his name? His son wrestled with me. He passed away. Larry the Axe Henning and Harley Race were tag team. They were tag champions for back in those days. So I remember watching them as kids. Yeah. And I knew who Bob Geigel was too.
Was Portland Don Owens?
Yes, sir. And him and Rowdy ran it together.
It was so funny.
Was there later on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. So I'm in sales. That's what I do now for a living. And I was talking to a guy. His name was Brian Owens. And I'm on the phone with him. And every time I said his name, I would say Don. I'd say, I'm sorry, Brian. So finally I said to him, I keep calling you Don because there's a famous wrestling promoter, Don Owens. He goes, that's my uncle from Portland. I said,
no kidding.
Yeah.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
That's cool as shit.
Yeah, he wasn't BSing me too, because he said from Portland, and he told me some stories. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Don. How was your experience?
No, Don was great. He was a rancher down there by Eugene, cattle rancher, and he was a great guy and a great guy to work for. Him and Sandy Barr kind of ran it. Sandy ran Salem for him, and then he ran the rest of the towns, and then had the TV there on Portland on Saturday night.
What'd you learn from the Grappler? What did he teach you?
Oh, a ton. Because Grappler had been around a long time by then, by '89. Right. Again, he booked for Harley, and I think he booked for somebody else. Where he went up there and booked for Don, and very intelligent. Learned a lot about the game of wrestling and how to work the crowd, heel wise, baby face wise. I was a heel, which I enjoyed being a heel, part of the wrecking crew with those guys. So I mean, he was a great teacher, a great mentor to me. And then Piper would come in once in a while and help us out when we were doing shows on Saturday night. And I don't think there's I'm going to say this, and I mean it from my heart. There's not a better heel in history. There might have been some as good, but nobody better than Roddy Piper. And that includes Ric Flair. Just because he got so much heat. That's why he had to start wearing leather jackets, because people would take knives and cut him as he was going to the ring, his arms. Yeah. I mean, he had real heat. Yes, Flair. He got real heat.
Did Roddy show up even though he was working for New York?
Oh yeah, he showed up and helped us TV, because Rowdy had to do, when he started doing movies, he kind of had to deal with Vince that he could do this, and Vince was cool with it.
Any special lessons that you remember from?
Oh, the big thing is, I think Rowdy he understood how to be a heel, probably as good as anybody in the game ever, and how to get real heat, not cheap heat. And so you learned a little bit about that. Then you also learned, what it takes to be a good babyface. He was a great mentor. He really understood the game, because I mean, he was trained by that guy down in that judo guy in California. Remember?
Yeah.
That guy's double tough. That guy.
Gino Bell?
I think so.
Gino Bell.
He picked up, who's a famous karate guy we all brag about?
Bruce Lee?
Yeah. He picked up Bruce Lee, put him in a hole he couldn't get away, and carried him around the studio for about 15 minutes. Bruce Lee's going, let go of me, let go of me. He goes, no. Because judo, if you can do judo for real, I mean, you're very dangerous. because once you get somebody, you can put them at submission and all kinds of stuff.
Were you the Equalizer there?
Yeah, that's what that's what Grapper wanted to go. He wanted me to work into go the Equalizer and eventually work in the wrecking crew with him and Brian Adams, because Brian was there at that time.
Brian's a good guy. He was a good guy.
Oh, we partied a lot together. I mean, he's a great guy. Go over to his house, hang out, and me and the Grappler. Then we go over to the Grappler's house, my house, vice versa. But yeah, he really just a deep down good guy. Billy Jack was there, and I got along with Billy. He's different, but he's still a good guy. I got along with him. But Brian with me, I became pretty good friends with Brian and the Grap.
I used to do WWF TV back in the early and mid 90s.
Oh, cool.
I got to work with Brian, and I just couldn't believe how gentle the man was. Like he's gentle.
He was such a, because he grew up in Hawaii. He grew up in Hawaii, and I always asked him how come he never played football, because he's a big old boy, and they just never did it. He did jiu-jitsu and some judo, and then he got into pro wrestling. But as a person, I felt bad when he passed. He really was. Felt bad for his wife, all of them, because they were just genuine people. They were great people. His wife, her family, his family, they were just really good people.